Corey, you've been teaching American government and history for some time. And as an educator, what do you see are the biggest challenges or threats to our third branch, the judicial branch of our government at this moment?
I think mostly for students, and I like to always frame it in talking about what students would see as the biggest challenge, is lack of knowledge about our third branch of government, especially from teachers, as well as potentially it's not being taught as much in schools. Like for teachers coming out of school, are they really focusing on how our government works together and how the three branches of government are independent from one another? And I think a lot of teachers are kind of unfamiliar with the judicial branch. They focus a lot of time teaching in the classroom on the legislative branch and on the executive branch, and the judicial branch kind of gets not as much focus when we're talking about the rule of law. It's really complicated, and so I think it's often teachers, I know myself, would teach it, of course, because it's an important thing to teach, but wouldn't want to get anything wrong because it's so complicated. And if you're not involved in the judicial system yourself, so having gone through it, or, are a lawyer yourself, it's really challenging to do that. And so students aren't getting as much of that in-depth knowledge. They're definitely studying the landmark cases and, looking into Supreme Court cases, but maybe not as much on kind of the day-to-day level. I don't think that students or teachers know what a district court does on a day-to-day level, even though that's the court that if you're going to go to court, that's going to be the one, district or municipal, but knowing what the differences between those are, I think that generally people, when they come out of high school, aren't going to know that unless they find themselves in one of those courts.
If we had some of your students, let's say middle school, early high school students here right now, what are the questions you think they want to be asking our judges and legal professionals about the judiciary right now?
I think that they do want to know, is the judiciary really being challenged right now? Is it at threat? Because you hear it in the news, you hear it being talked about, and I think they want to understand, is it at threat, and then how so? I think basically at a foundational level, they want to understand how the judiciary comes in and how they are involved in the lawmaking process. They know, they're taught that the judicial branch interprets the laws. What does that actually mean in practice? Youths who are involved in the justice system, we work with those students too. They only see the judicial branch as the people who are sending them to jail. What else do they do? And it's really hard for them to divorce those ideas and knowing that the judicial branch does other things as well. And so looking at those particular issues, or how does the state judicial branch differ from the federal judicial branch is a huge thing that our students really don't understand at all. They only know the Supreme Court of the United States. They don't know anything, unfortunately, about the Supreme Court of Washington State, even though they could contact a Supreme Court judge here in Washington and they would probably talk to them because they're right there and want to engage with those students. And so I think there's a lot of foundational knowledge that they really want to know so that they can grapple with the issues. And then using those examples of whatever case they want to use going through. Like we were looking at the WSU case that was heard before the Supreme Court, the Washington Supreme Court, and they haven't released their ruling yet on Sam's Law and drinking in sororities and things like that. I think that would be an excellent example once the ruling comes out to really talk to students about how it started, how it went from Superior Court to the Court of Appeals to the Supreme Court, and then really showcase those things from the legislative level too of how the law was passed in, I think, 2019 or something like that. And so those sorts of examples, I think, would really engage them, and I just don't know if we're doing it as much as we should.